Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
Hey, Drew, mate, are you there? Where are you?
Hang on, I'm sliding in. There we are. No, I just dropped my bottle opener. So I'm back. I'm here. Yeah, I am bitterly disappointed.
What? Why?
Gutted, because I miss the sartorial elegance. I miss the suit, the tie. I mean, thankfully we've still got the haircut. I mean, not even your
haircut and the foliage.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. There she is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, mate. I mean, so now this week you're looking. You're looking a bit like a sort of explorer with the epaulettes and everything in there. Yeah,
I don't know, mate. It was just comfy, and I'll tell you what, it's a darn sight cooler than the bloody whistle and flute was. It's
crikey, mate!
As lovely as it was, was it warm?
Well, I mean, we can have an appearance later in the season. There's no reason why we.
Yeah, maybe we'll find a special episode, some reason to dress up, and maybe it's your turn actually.
It might be my turn. I mean, I know it's dress down day today. It'll be dress up day on another day. We'll find something, a special occasion.
We'll find something, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, as usual, what have you been up to, matey? How have you been doing?
So I've had a semi-busy week, I guess. Tell you what, the biggest thing I've done this week is obviously filming starts very soon for the house that Zombies built. What am I, a month and a half off, something like that?
Wow.
A month and a bit. So we've been trying to organise some sort of rehearsals just to try and, because time on set is going to be quite limited, and because of the things that are in place that sort of limit what you can do, and we have to be quite careful and very safe. There's perhaps not as much time in between shots and within the filming schedule to kind of rehearse or run things. So we're trying to be one step ahead of the game and do a bit of rehearsing and a bit of sort of running through scripts and some development.
Where are you shooting again? I can't.
So we're in Essex, in South End. We're shooting, so a little bit off my normal path. I'm sort of quite far west of that.
Yeah.
But very much looking forward to it. But again, people are going to be traveling, so that's got to be taken into account. So we're trying to organise a few like video calls or whatever to run some scripts, do some development. And I'll tell you what, it isn't bloody half difficult trying to get a bunch of actors and a creative team even it's not getting in a room, it's getting online all at the same time. So
in their own homes.
Yeah, I've been trying to orchestrate that a bit, and then on top of that, some of the usual, little bit of voiceover, a few self tapes, a bit of prep, and I've got a show coming up as well, so I'm quite excited for that. So I've been trying to remind myself of exactly what I've got to do and the script. But
lines, mate, it's lines.
Lines. But no, a good week. What about yourself?
A nice week. I had a similar experience regarding, because I got a film we're filming. The film has been brought forward from September to August time. So that's been interesting because again, availability of locations, because this is being shot on canal boats, and my small part of the movie has been done in a church, and it's availability of the church buildings, which you can imagine is quite difficult. Yeah. So that's been brought forward. So I had a meeting with the director this week, and we were chatting character and script, and he works, takes a script but then there are moments where he just likes you to go away off script and improvise. So we were basically talking about how much of the lines that are written I want to use, or he wants me to use, or just actually just throw it in the mix. And he said, I'd like you just to go with your gut feeling. So there's a lot of preparation about the character, out of which my lines will come. So that was a very interesting discussion and process. So I'm reading the script now, and then we're going to have another Zoom meeting. And then the difficulty part of I'm going to meet with some of the actors and the director, so it'll be the same experience as you have of getting those together.
Yeah.
But so that's been that. And I've had a self-tape to do, which is lovely. That came in like, we'd like this by, so-and-so tomorrow morning. It's like, that means doing it now at 11 o'clock at night. So that was one of those.
Short notice ones, don't you love them?
Yeah. Oh, a short day. Yes. Could we have it by end? No, you can't. But no, you can't. So I had that one to do. And yeah, just basically kind of and dodging the weather a little bit as well.
Yeah.
God,
a bit all over the place, isn't it, this week?
Well, I was been to see my mum, did a day's a little bit of gardening for her and whatnot, and I was pouring with sweat, and then I was trimming, doing some pruning yesterday, and it was like, oh, quick, get out of the rain, totally unpredictable,
all over the place. Can't predict it. So yeah.
And which, and I know you like a segue. I
do love a segue.
Segues nicely into unpredictability, into our season's first guest.
Yes.
Episode 2. We're hitting them with a lovely guy that we both had the pleasure of working with. And he's an absolutely fascinating man because of what he does, Mr. David Fisher. I'll tell you everyone his name. Traveler, a real troubadour, I think we can say.
Oh, throw one of those out there early on. Go on.
I haven't used that word in many a long year, but yeah, he's a musician, traveler, busker. And in fact, here's interesting. He and I worked together only a week or so ago.
Yeah.
So yeah. I've met him earlier than I've met you in the flesh. So how about that?
Yeah. Or seen, but yeah. So
yes.
A weird scenario, and as you say, quite an appropriate way to segue in because his career certainly has a lot to do with the weather because he will be immensely affected by whether people are out in the open or whether they're hiding away from the rain, wind, snow, whatever happens to be going on. But yeah, so as you say, you've managed to work with him fairly recently. I haven't seen him for quite some time, and very excited to be hopefully sharing the stage with him again very soon and getting to see him. And we're not going to have to wait any longer to see him today because he's here. Hello, Mr. Fisher.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello. How are we
doing? Yeah, very well, thanks. Yeah.
Very good to see you. It has been absolutely forever since we last worked together. And well, I say that it's been ages since I've seen you. Drew, however, you two were together a couple of weeks ago.
A week or so ago, yeah.
A week ago, yeah.
We were down the outskirts of Bristol somewhere and doing Fools at 40. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the combination show of Only Fools and Horses and 40 Towers. That's
correct. Yeah.
But anyway, ladies and gentlemen at home or wherever you happen to be listening or watching, this is our good friend, Mr. David Fisher, extremely talented actor, but primarily folk singer, busker, musician extraordinaire. And we're very glad to have you on the show, mate. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Great stuff. Well, as we said, we know you very well. We've worked with you and we know you for all your wonderful facets, but obviously we got people listening that don't know you. So give us an intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Expose yourself to Drewling Samantics.
Goodness me, didn't realize it was that sort of show. Anyway, yes, I mainly, for about the last 10 years or so, I've mainly been making my living as a busker, which sort of started off as just a bit of a side hustle when I was looking for a job after graduating and then realized I was making a living from it. So since then, I've just been traveling around a lot with my busking, playing gigs wherever I can and picking up bits of acting work along the way whenever I see something that takes my fancy and I get an offer for. So that's me. That's what I do.
So you referred to graduating. So you trained as an actor or musician?
Yeah, I went to uni to study drama, and then it was just sort of second or third year when I was looking for a bit of extra beer money. I started busking in Birmingham, and it was never the plan for that to be a long-term thing or anything like that, really. But it just sort of developed over the next year or so, and here I am, still busking, and really love it.
I know. I'm Sam knows. I dipped my toe in the water very, very slightly a few years back. I was involved in a show with 2 street performers, and I developed a street performing act. They helped me put it together because basically I was going up to Edinburgh Festival, and we were going to fund ourselves. found the show we were doing with street performers, and the show was because those two guys are very regular street performers. A lot of the stuff we were doing, a lot of the clowning, was born out of their experience. And I have to say, I mean, I was very welcomed on the pitch in Covent Garden, and it is something that, I mean, I would have to really get my chops back now, but it is something that is so peculiar and so, I don't know, all encompassing. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a great way, and certainly, you know, something I'd never done before, not you know, in any way, shape, or form. I mean, did you find it? You know, it's suddenly that thing of going out there and not having an audience. And there are no guarantees, are there? There are no guarantees.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, Covent Garden is so quite different to the sort of the busking that I do. With Covent Garden, you're more guaranteed of an audience than pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah.
You probably will. And you know, quite frankly, I mean, I don't think I'd make very much at all if I went to Covent Garden, because I don't think my act is sort of unique enough. But yeah, I mean, the first time I went busking, it was in Milton Keynes, because that's where I grew up. I think it was uni holidays. I was back with my parents. And I went for a start, I didn't actually make as much as I'd paid to get into the centre on the bus, so that wasn't a good start, to be honest. But it was this weird sense of, you know, where do I just sort of got my guitar out, and I was, you know, I haven't got permission from anyone. No one's told me to play. Do I just start playing? It was a really, really weird sense. Yeah, I think I made about £3.50 because I'd chosen a terrible spot. It was raining, and I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm glad I didn't sack it all in at that point, to be honest. But it is a very weird sensation, because it's not like a gig where, yeah, as you say, you know, you've got an audience, you know what's expected of you. It's very odd to just for the
I guess
first
it's
time,
almost flipped on its head, because when we go and do shows in the theatre or in venues, the audience are waiting for us to come out and do our thing. As a busker, as a street performer, you're waiting for the audience to come and give you the time of day, sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And with the sort of busking that I do, it tends to be people don't tend to stop and linger for too long. They'll drop a bit in and then walk on by. And that was always one of my arguments. I'm sure we'll go into talking about busking over the last year or so, which has been very different. When every now and then I'd get sort of stopped and questioned by police officers or council officials saying, "Oh, are you allowed to be out here?" And I'd say, "Yeah, yes. Here's the legislation that I think proves that." And then they'd say, "Oh, well, you know, what if you draw a crowd?" And I'd always say, "Well, that's never been a problem for the last 10 years." So yeah, I mean, that's it doesn't tend to be a big issue for me.
Yeah, I mean, that is the difference, because if you go to Covent Garden, many people who go to Covent Garden and they go to stand the piazza are there to see the street performers. And then it's down to the skill of the individual performer to marshal their crowd, the edge, and get them and keep them. I mean, the limit there is a 40-minute show. And you know, I learnt the tricks to keep the audience there and to get, and then it's down to the speech at the end to get the money in the hat. But as you say, I mean, you are literally, you know, performing to passers-by, passing you by. And is it a kind of geographical thing? But I mean, it's obviously where you put yourself. If people feel comfortable to stand, if you're in a street square, in a town square, then people will stop. But if not, they'll keep going.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, and that's what again can be quite frustrating if you're asked to move to just sort of 20 yards down the road or something like that by someone. And I'll always dig in and say, no, look, I've chosen this spot very, very specifically. This wasn't just a random choice. You know, if I go to a new town, I'll spend about 5 or 10 minutes just sitting on a bench and watching where people are going, where they're coming from, where they're lingering, to try and work out not just exactly where to stand, but which angle to face. And these things can have a huge impact. I mean, there's one of my favourite busking spots in Birmingham. There was one day when there was that spot was out of commission due to roadworks or something like that. So I set up, it was just 20 metres down the road, and I made less than half what I'd normally make in that other spot. And it was just because of there's a slightly more background noise. The way that people were passing by was very slightly different. And so these things make a huge difference. And I don't, a lot of the time I'll get it wrong. I'll start up in a new spot and think after 20 minutes, well, this is clearly not working, and I'll have to find a new space. But these little details make a massive difference.
I guess on the subject, sorry, Drew, I guess on the subject of things making a difference, we might as well jump in there quite early on. So as you know, Drew and I refer quite often to our uninvited guest. Yeah. And I imagine that said guest had or has or is having even an incredible effect on what you do as a performer in public. Now, we thought we were really clever, Drew and I, and we thought, do you know what? We're going to book in David because we'll be able to speak to him just as we're changing over, the rules are relaxed and things are, I won't use the word normal, but things are familiar again. And perhaps it'll be the perfect time to say, are you excited that the restrictions are really kind of eased off and you're going to be able to go back to exactly where you were before? Unfortunately, Mr. Boris had other ideas. So we cannot refer to the forthcoming relaxation as in being so soon. It is still happening, obviously, but it's going to be a little bit further down the line. But that aside, can you sort of allude to just how much things have changed and how heavily you've been affected?
Yeah, I mean, it's had a huge impact. I mean, at the start of the pandemic, I had a couple of months off. And then I went back to it sort of mid-May when the shops opened up again, I think. And it was, everything was different. There were pitches that I used to play in that were no longer viable pitches because I was very concerned that I had to make sure I was staying 2 meters. I was able to set my guitar case 2 meters in front of me. And a lot of people weren't carrying cash, so I now have a contactless option for busking. You can tap to tip, which has had a reasonable amount of success. But everything felt different. I mean, for a month or two, I was mainly busking outside supermarkets. I was busking to the supermarket queues because that's where the people were. So there was all sorts of the different ways of getting used to it. So there's been that, and then of course there's been the legal side, which it's caused quite a bit of arguments within the busking community. I mean, I volunteer with an organisation called Keep Streets Live, and we campaign for buskers' rights and a lot on the legal side of things. We've argued throughout that the law says that we have been allowed to busk because the law says, well, you're allowed to leave the house to go to work, and well, if the police officers that arrested me in January over this, they were saying, well, I was saying, well, if this doesn't work, then can I have my taxes back from the last 10 years that I've been preparing on all of this?
I bet that went down well.
As you can imagine, yes, they were rolling in the aisles at that one. So there's been this debate. We've maintained throughout that it's legal, and we've given out advice for how you can keep your workplace COVID safe. As far as we're concerned, you can be in an open space. It's outdoors. There are very few workplaces which are more COVID safe.
Well, yeah, that's the irony. The fact is that your workspace is considerably safer than the majority of others because you are out in the open.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So, and most of the time, I've had no problems. The Musicians Union didn't help by asking the government, "Is it legal?" You should never. This is never the number one rule. You should never ever ask anyone whether you can play or not. Never ask the councils. Never ask because they don't know the answer and they don't care, and they're never going to say that the answer, regardless of COVID or anything else, is never going to be ask wherever you like. No one says that, so don't ask. I didn't understand that, but anyway, the government came back saying no, you shouldn't be busking until this date, and it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any legal sense or anything like that. So, as far as we're concerned, that was some intern firing off some ill-advised guidance or something like that. So we have had that problem throughout as well. And as I say, I was arrested in January when I was asked to leave and said, no, this is my job, and spent 4.5 hours in a police cell in the Black Country over in Oldbury. And they said they were going to fine me, and eventually they sort of quietly dropped that by forgetting to put it in the post, I think. But yes, so
if you get home from doing this, or if you go out into your into your hallway and there's a letter on the floor,
Yeah.
it's just going to be the worst possible timing.
It will be. I mean, it's been over 5 months. I think they've probably let it slide, but you never know. You never know.
I mean, that I know the some of the guys in Covent Garden are having trouble on landlords and councils and withdrawing the rights and that. Are there less places, or is it getting harder to find a pitch now?
Yeah, I mean, certainly Covent Garden is a real issue at the moment. Because I mean, Westminster Council a couple of months ago introduced they made it a criminal offence to busk in the whole of Westminster without a licence. And obviously, this licence has a huge amount of attachments and conditions that a lot of buskers simply can't abide by. No. And it's not made busking it's not helped the residents and businesses who maybe had some legitimate concerns about things like volume. It's not helped them at all, because it just means that the irresponsible buskers who are always there are now irresponsible buskers with a license. And it's the people who actually have some sort of semblance of principles and an idea of the sort of busking comradeship. They haven't got the license, and but they were the ones who were busking responsibly all along. So so in Westminster, it's causing huge problems. Across most of the rest of the country, you can mainly busk where you like. But then the other issue is that there's a lot of city centres these days are privately owned, and you can walk through city centres without realising it. Pretty much the whole of Liverpool is owned by a private corporation. The whole of Liverpool city centre, or the vast majority. And people, you don't realise, you're just walking through, you think it's council, but they've sold all the land off.
No.
And so that's another issue that we're coming up against, is that a lot of the time you'll be having to busk on private land, which causes all sorts of issues in itself. So we are being squeezed at the moment, I think. But on the positive side, I think in the last year or so in particular, people have just been the public have been very, very kind to buskers. I've noticed a huge upturn in that. I think people can see that it's obviously been a tough year, and they've just been a lot more generous, which has been lovely. So
I mean, I think as well, people just want some form of, I say normality, but just feeling comfortable in the space. And there's so little out there. I mean, there's so little atmosphere that, I mean, anybody doing anything. I know I was in town, walked through central London a little while back, and there was a guy busking, there was a guy playing, and I mean, he was just putting a smile on people's faces, because it was just hearing, something, color, entertainment. Everyone was feeling happy. You think, thank God there's some brightness in the world. That, and so I think I don't know what Covent Garden is like at the moment, whether people are back working there. Probably not, because you can't have a crowd. You can't social distance,
I think that they are back in Covent Garden now. I suspect it's more difficult than it was, because you haven't got the tourists at the moment.
No,
but people are back working the pitches.
Cool.
As far as I know, I think I'll be down there in a couple of days, so I might be able to go and check it out. But, it's slowly getting back on its feet again. But as you say, when you're working a pitch like that, it's you need a high level of footfall for it to
absolutely
work.
Yeah.
And you are the man to talk to about knowing footfall in areas and the advantages of certain pitches, because I won't spoil it. In fact, I'll get you to talk about it. But you've written a book, which is an incredible book, but it's all about busking in many different places. I'm going to hand back over to you and just tell us a bit more about it and explain exactly why you are such an expert in knowing areas and pitches.
So I spent about 3.5 years traveling around Europe, busking my way around. So that included, in the end, every country in the EU and a few more besides. Probably I do keep track of every city of busking. I think that it's now up at about 320 in total. That's so I had an absolutely brilliant time doing it, and I'll go back to it, I'm sure, once travel isn't an absolute pain in the
one of those,
pain in the busk,
yeah.
I mean, in all that time, I'm going to ask, because have you got a favourite pitch or somewhere you've gone? I could play here every day, kind of thing.
My favourite town to busk in is I think would be Bruges in Belgium. It's absolutely it tends to be because I don't like flying too much when I'm travelling, and I would love to claim that this is an environmental stand, which I suppose maybe it is, but also flying with a guitar is very difficult. They charge you so much money, and I can't be doing that. So I don't like flying with my guitar if I can avoid it. So what I used to often do is wherever I was heading, I'd take a boat from London to Bruges and kick off from there. And then once you get to Brussels, there's lots of connections there. So I must say, I've been there many times now. And there's one particular spot in Bruges, which is actually one of the 2 spots in Bruges where busking is banned, unfortunately. But I usually get away with it for about an hour or so. I don't know why it's banned there. I've got no idea. But anyway, it's just off one of the sort of secondary square in Bruges. It's under an archway. And the footfall isn't massive. You don't get a huge amount of people passing through. But and you're actually hidden away from the square. If you're on the square, you can't actually see me. So it doesn't sound like a good pitch, but it's something to do with the acoustics in that very, very specific spot where you can. I've been told wherever you are in that square, you can hear me quite loudly and clearly. And then when people start passing through, I mean, the sort of in terms of the percentage of people who walk by and drop me money, it's a brilliant pitch. Particularly sort of early evening time when Bruges is a very romantic city. You play a lot of lovely ballads. I mean, I don't know that many love songs. So I'm a folk musician. Most love songs end up with a lot of death. So as long as you don't listen too carefully to the lyrics, they sound like perfectly romantic songs. They're not, but people don't pay that close attention. It's just that specific spot for an hour or so in the early evening is my very, very specific answer to your question there.
Nice, brilliant.
I love it there.
I long before I did it properly, I was at drama school and living in Earls Court, and one of my favourite places was to go down to the museums in South Kent, and there was a passageway, a walkway.
Oh yes, yeah.
From the steps, yeah. And now I had no idea. I'd watched a couple of films, and I used to do a lot of mime, a lot of clowning, and I thought, look, this is the thing to do. You go and you set up as a mime artist, and you do your mime, and people chuck money in. So I thought I'd have a go at this one, and I thought that's it. It's packed under there. So I went down, and I wasn't very good. I did sort of half an hour of sort of miming, bottling, climbing, and pouring things, and just general silliness with a white face on. And people stopped, and they threw some money in. But by nature of a tunnel, an underpass, it got blocked. So after a while, the local constabulary turned up and sort of went, "Yeah, mate," and moved me on. They were very kind. They had looked down and realized that there wasn't much in the hat. They went, "Put that away and on your bike," and it was kind of like they let me know. They hadn't seen me before, so I went. Yeah. And then the next couple of weeks later, I was walking through, and there was a guy playing, and he said it was the acoustic in there. And I stopped and chatted to him and said, "Oh yeah, I was down here doing mime, a couple of weeks back." And he went, "Oh, it was you, was it?" He said, "The old Bill have been up and down here like." No, I think I'd attracted the attention because usually, the passers-by walking by stop for 20 seconds, money in the hat, and then away they went. But I'd attracted a crowd that wanted to stop and watch me. Apparently, I loaded the walkway, the underpass, for a couple of weeks with a local place.
Wherever you go, Drew, you obviously attract trouble.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't go back. I kept my head down and went, "Yeah, okay." That was my foray into busking at a very young age, and learned, no, don't do that.
No.
Yeah. I've played that pitch a couple of times before. It's brilliant acoustics there.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Really, really not from mime artist.
No, not from mime artist. The acoustics don't matter so much for you, do they, I suppose? But if they do, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, if you can hear it, it's wrong.
Yeah.
So obviously, busking was something you kind of fell into, or it was something that there was a side gig that sort of, to an extent, has taken over your life and become this massive passion. But alongside that, as you mentioned, you play folk music. You are a folk musician, and have released albums, and you've got a new single that came out recently. Did one lead to the other? Did one come from the other? Is there quite a close knit relationship between the two?
Yeah, I think so. It's my sort of the folk music side is developed over time. I don't think when I started playing music, I thought, oh yeah, folk, because I liked a lot of Lindisfarne and Bob Dylan and things like that. I think which most people consider to be, that makes you a folk singer, folk artist. And then the more I sort of started to, I used to go out with someone who was very heavily involved with traditional folk and things like that. And that's when I started going to the traditional folk clubs. And then that's when you realise that there are all sorts of these layers of folk. And if you go into a folk club and play a Bob Dylan song, a lot of people think, that's not folk. That's not folk. No. We can identify who's actually written that song, so it can't be folk. And then even some place there are other. I mean, the Cecil Sharp Folk Club in London is a wonderful place to go. I think I'm seen as a little bit modern because I will play my 18th century ballads accompanied by guitar rather than just singing them completely. So that's a little bit out there. So there are all these sort of layers of folk, and I have to say the sort of 18 verse long 17th century murder ballads don't go down brilliantly on the street. So I mainly save them for the folk club thing. But where the sort of busking does come into it is that whenever I learn a new song, I mean, busking is a really good place to practice that song with not a huge amount of pressure. So I'm terrible for remembering lyrics, and I'm sure, well, both of you are very kindly not adding in and remembering lines. But
not saying
to be fair enough. So I'm terrible for that. So I need to sing a song over and over and over before they stick in my head. And so busking is an ideal way to do that. I mean, even if I'm not making money from whatever song it is on the street, it's a decent place to practice with a sort of audience, I suppose.
Free studio time, isn't it?
Yes, something like that. Yeah.
Do you do a lot of festivals and stuff like that?
Not a lot. I'd like to do more. I usually get a couple in each year. I'm playing at St Albans Folk Festival and Cornwall Folk Festival this year, which is nice. It's good to see that there are still some festivals going ahead this year.
Yeah.
But the sort of problem with festivals and folk clubs now is that obviously everything got postponed last year, and a lot of things have been postponed this year, and then that has a knock-on effect because everyone who was offered those gigs, they get postponed. They get obviously fair enough, the sort of first refusal on when it actually does go ahead. So I've been in touch with a lot of folk clubs, and they're saying, well, look, we'd love to offer you something, but folk clubs are booked up for the next sort of 2 years or something like that because of the sort of knock-on effect that uninvited guest has had.
Yes.
So it sort of makes things all a bit more tricky, but I can't wait to play a couple of festivals again this year.
Yeah.
It's been far too long.
I think it's the feeling across the industry, isn't it, that luckily some of us have been able to do certain bits. So you've been able to go out on the street to an extent and continue playing. We've done between the three of us various shows and little bits of online work as actors and performers. So we have been lucky enough to work, but to be able to feel like we can go back and just we're as busy and as fulfilled and able to have the freedom to work as we have done before. We're on the cusp of it and cannot wait for it to be back there. And we just got to wait for the last couple of weeks to pass by and get back to where we want to be.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of the issues with the sort of the response to this in terms of the sort of help that's been given out. I think that there's sort of been a perception that either you're working or you're not, and I don't think there's been enough of an appreciation of that sort of middle ground. That we're all sort of carving out various bits and pieces, but this is not yet. It's going to be a long time before we're back to the amount and volume of work that we used to take. And I think that goes for music, that goes for acting. And you can put on this play with 25% capacity. What's the problem? So, well, it's not viable. If you could make a profit on 25%, then theatres would be rolling in month.
Yeah,
well, not rolling in it, but still.
Yeah.
So it's these. I think this lack of appreciation of the fact that it's going to be a slow recovery, and then it's going to be half and half for a long time. I think things going ahead, but not quite fully going ahead, and.
It's that snapping back, isn't it? Because it's like, the theatres are open again. Well, that's all very well, but yes, you've got to have all that preparation before. That is, if you're not getting an audience, is difficult to pay for. And as you say, if you're only getting 25-30% capacity, then that becomes difficult in itself. So it is a long-term preparation again, a long-term recovery. So yeah, we just fingers crossed that we can all just survive, as we going along.
Yeah,
I have to say that the next person who says, "Oh, if you tried doing a live stream," I'm going to punch them. I've tried it. It's fine, but it's not viable, is it? Really?
No.
It really. I mean, I know people have the best of intentions, but yeah, stop. If you listen to that and you're thinking of asking any artist or musician, have you tried a live stream? Don't ever ask that.
No.
There we go.
It's probably passed their mind already, and there's a reason they haven't.
There's a reason. Yeah.
But anyway, we'll move swiftly on from that sort of aggressive note there.
I know I got weirdly aggressive. I'm sorry.
There he is, a gentle folk singer about to punch you out.
Months. I'm a very peace-loving person for the most part.
No, you are the calmest and most accommodating gentleman I know. But we'll switch the subject up a bit, and Drew's going to be disappointed in me because I haven't segued. But there we go. I'm going to go back to referencing your book and the accompanying album because, ladies and gentlemen, Drewling Samantics followers, fans, listeners, viewers, we've got our first competition of season 2. Give me an ooh!
Ooh!
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I won't be doing that again. That was quite.
Yeah, we should have practiced that.
Yeah, should have done that in rehearsal. But no, so David has very, very kindly given us a signed copy of his album and his book to give away to one of our lucky listeners and viewers. And as always, we've got some very simple requirements that you have to carry out to be able to enter. So all you have to do is go on to Facebook and find David Fisher. And once you've found his page, give his page a like. Then find us as well, Drewling Samantics on Facebook. Give us a like. And finally, this episode has been released, as you've probably seen, with a picture of our 3 beautiful faces. All you have to do is find that lovely picture of the 3 of us and give that a like as well. So like David's page, like our page, and like the post with the picture of us 3, and you are automatically entered to win. And as always, Drew and I will draw the winner on next week's episode. Drew, have you got an updated way of choosing a winner so we're not terrified by your technological inabilities yet, or are we?
No, it's going to be randomly generated on my phone as always.
Lovely.
Either that, or I could go back to folded pieces of paper in a hat. It depends on what you want.
Which actually is quite appropriate.
I was about to say that.
Yeah. So, but yes. So, David, thank you so much. Incredible prize. As always, I'm massively disappointed that I can't enter. But Drew does remind me each time that if I put my name in, then it's a little bit biased and probably not appropriate. But yeah. So, thank you so much for that. And I'm sure all the listeners and viewers will be eager to enter that one and to try and win an amazing prize. So
Busking Beyond Borders. You forgot the title.
Yeah, that's very true. We actually haven't mentioned the name. It is in if anyone saw our social media post on Friday, we did allude to the fact that Busking Beyond Borders, the book and the album, were the subject of today's episode, and of course David as the author and creator. But yes, so if you would like to win a signed copy of the album and book Busking Beyond Borders, then please just like, simple as that. But yes, thank you again, David. Very kind of you, and I appreciate. We are quickly running out of time because I know you've got various things queued up in your crazy busy schedule. But Drew, I can see. I know what you want to ask. So we are the first episode first guest episode into season 2. Shall I hand over and you can do your favourite guest moment? Do you want?
Well, it's only. I mean, I'm particularly looking forward to this because we always get our guests to finish up with a story from their varied and interesting careers, and yours is very interesting and very varied. So do you have a favorite story, an anecdote? I mean, sticking yourself out there on the streets, I know from personal experience, can be incredibly entertaining in itself. Have you got something that sticks in the mind as a story?
It's sort of, and it kind of led to one of my favorite periods of that traveling. That time I had traveling. It was when I was over in Armenia, which is a wonderful country, and I was just I was busking on the main streets of the capital city, Yerevan, and I think I was playing the song "What Should We Do with the Drunken Sailor" at the time, and so someone asked if it was okay to film it. I said, yeah, of course. And they came and spoke to me afterwards and said, look, my a good friend of mine is in a Celtic folk band, and their guitarist and singer has just quit. So do you mind if I send this to him? I thought, well, that wasn't quite what I was expecting from busking in Armenia, but he sent this video over, and this guy sent a message back saying, right, tell him to stay where he is. I'm on my lunch break in an hour. I'll come and find him. And so I met this guy a couple of hours later, and he said, well, yeah, how long are you over here for? And I said, about a week or something. Okay, well, I'll get the rest of the band together. We'll have a rehearsal at my place tomorrow, and we'll see what happens. And so I went over for this rehearsal, and we said, okay, we got a set list. You know, a lot of this are Irish. It's all Irish and Scottish folk. It's all the stuff that I play. I mean, all the people in the band, they're all Armenian, but they just have a love of Celtic folk music. And so we just they said, right, okay, we'll organise a gig for next week. We'll just Tuesday night, your last night in Armenia, we'll get a gig together, put out something on Facebook. I thought, brilliant, yeah, we might get a couple of dozen people there. And I didn't realise that this band they're incredibly popular. We just sort of we gave people 3 days notice for a Tuesday evening gig, and it came to the gig, and it was completely sold out. 150 people crammed into this tiny little underground bar. And What Should We Do with the Drunken Sailor was the song that they always used to finish on to get everyone get everyone going. And everyone knew all the words. It was I mean, a fair few people in the audience didn't speak any English, but they knew all the words to Tell Me Ma and Wild Rover and What Should We Do with the Drunken Sailor. It was bizarre, but absolutely, it was the best gig I've ever played. Absolutely brilliant. And I got quite drunk, and afterwards just sort of went round chatting to everyone and saying, this is great, I love Armenia, I want to move here and just play gigs. And then the next morning I was like, well, so I don't really live anywhere else. I said, sure, why not? And so a few months after that, I was in the UK, and then I moved to Armenia for 3 or 4 months to join the band with the intention of playing other gigs. And we played a few gigs. We didn't play as many as we thought, because 3 weeks after I moved there, they had a revolution, which was all very exciting. But one of the people in the band was quite involved in the revolution, so he was quite busy. That led to some of the best street parties I've ever seen. It was a very popular revolution, and went to a bar afterwards that I played a gig at the previous week, and it was just free alcohol all night. I went in at midnight, and the guy who owned the bar was standing on the bar. Said, David, come on in tonight. Every drink free because the revolution is. All right, great. I'll have a beer. No, we drank all the beer. Okay, fine. Well, whatever you have. And it was So that was so that sort of one moment of playing What Should We Do with the Drunken Sailor on the Yellow Band led to these fantastic gigs and witnessing a revolution. So that was a brilliant time.
That's stunning.
Loved it.
Brilliant, mate. Absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely surreal. But a story.
Completely.
What a story.
Oh, dear.
Mind blown. But
it's cracking.
And what you've just done is set the bar bloody high for the rest of the guests this season.
Yeah.
Because my goodness, that's incredible. And what story to be able to tell people? Like,
and I do frequently. We get very bored of it. I bang on about the Armenian Revolution almost as much as I do about about busking legislation, which is a lot. But there we go.
Well, I can safely say that our viewers and listeners will be more than glad that you've told that, because that's just what a story! What a story! Thank you so much for regaling us with that incredible tale, and I guess thank you in general, mate, for being on.
It's been a real pleasure. I've loved it.
Drew and I are lucky enough to be able to work with you on stage and have done on many occasions, and I'm very much looking forward to hopefully sometime in the very near future we'll be back treading the boards together. Very jealous that you two have been already. But no, thank you so much for joining us today, and also for your incredibly generous prize and people at home and on the roads and wherever you might be listening or watching us, make sure you do enter, because the book and the album are brilliant and you do not want to miss out on the opportunity. But yeah, David, thank you so much, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And thank you, mate.
See you again.
Thank you both.
Soon.
I've had a great time.
Yeah.
Lovely. Take care of yourself, mate. We'll see you soon.
We'll see you
Thanks
soon,
very
David.
much.
Take care.
Cheers, buddy. Ta-da.
Bye.
What a story. Isn't that incredible?
Absolutely, mate. Fantastic. I mean, I could just imagine how many more stories he's got to tell in the book of his. I mean, it must be great.
Exactly. An incredible guy, incredible things to tell, really brilliant musician, brilliant actor, and an absolute pleasure to have him on with us.
Joy. Oh, and talking about the book, Sam, and the album, Busking Beyond Borders, our listeners can win one. Tell them
they can, yes. So I will just reiterate the instructions for any of you who have forgotten in the last couple of minutes. I'm sure you haven't, but the simple way to enter the competition to win signed copies of Busking Beyond Borders on album and the book itself, all you have to do is go onto Facebook, like David Fisher's page, like the Drewling Samantics page, and then find the picture of the three of us, which we're posting with this episode, and just give that a like as well. As soon as you've liked all three, you are automatically entered, and keep your fingers crossed that you win the book and the album. So good luck to everyone out there listening and viewing. Well, yeah, absolutely. And aside from all our lovely viewers and listeners who get to spend their week entering the competition and hoping they're going to win, let's jump to you, Drew. What have you got coming up, mate?
Reasonably quiet week. I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I have been penciled for a job midway through the week. So I'm just, thank you for that, Sam. Yeah, so I'll keep my fingers crossed for that. And just basically, carrying on as per. Nothing too exciting, but I'm still swimming. Progress is, but I'm progressing nicely. I'm moving through the water quite nicely. So so I'm looking forward to another swimming lesson during the week. And you, Mr. Mr. Swim Maestro, what have you got coming up?
I don't know about that. It's been a long time since I've done any proper exercise, I can tell you. So another similar week for me, really. So I know I've got, I think, a self-tape that's on the list to be done. Still trying to organise a few rehearsals and some meetings for the movie coming up. But I tell you what, I am particularly excited because we've got some new things happening in next week's episode. Not only are we going to announce the winner to our amazing competition.
Oh, yes.
We've got something brand new, never before seen or listened to on Drewling Samantics. So people out there, you are not going to want to miss it. Something very, very different, and something I cannot wait for. So
a departure from the norm, but I'm looking forward to that, mate. Really looking forward to it.
I think it's going to be great. So well, all that's left to say other than that is have a cracking week, mate. And I look forward very much to seeing you next time. And everyone at home, make sure you enter the competition. Keep downloading, listening, liking, and following on social media as well. And we look very much forward to you all joining us next week for something a little bit different. So,
a little bit special.
Until then, Sam, have a cracker, Drew. I'll speak to you soon, mate.
And cheers. Take it easy.
Thanks again for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
If you have, then please consider subscribing to our channel and you'll get notified every time a new video is released. Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app.
Please support us on other social media too. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and all our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so please share with your family and friends and we'll be eternally grateful. Stay safe and we'll see you next time.